Morning everyone, it's Becky from Fun Little Foodies Northumberland South here. Now, obviously, where should we really be this morning? We should be doing our foodies class, but because we've had to stop for a little while, I thought I'd better come online and show you how to make what we would have been making this week. So, before we start though, make sure we've all washed our hands. I've done mine. Give your hands a wash, and then let's have a little look at our ingredients. So first of all, we've got some flour, and today what we're making, we don't need it to rise. So this one, I can imagine some of you little foodies shouting at the screen, plain, it is plain flour. We don't need it to rise, so it's just plain. Then in this bowl, we've got some butter, nice hard butter, okay? We need it to be nice hard, not the soft kind for what we're making today. And in here, looks a bit like flour, but it's actually icing sugar. See the clouds of icing sugar wafting up there? Yes, icing sugar to give it a bit of sweetness. Now normally I would be passing this round and letting you all have a smell. Whoa, it's a good smell. It smells a bit like ice cream. Yep, that is vanilla flavouring. Okay, and we've got our little scoop for that. We just need a bit. And what have we got in here? Milk. We've got some milk for that. Now, as always, if anybody in your family is gluten-free, you could have your gluten-free flour, you could have dairy-free butter if you needed to, you could use any other kind of milk, almond milk, soya milk, any of those would work just as well. It's been tested, they're still absolutely delicious. Okay, we've got all of our equipment as well, so we're going to need a rolling pin, and let's see those butterfly hands, because we're going to do some good strong rolling. Although it's quite soft dough, you won't need to be pressing quite as hard. We'll still use the middle of our rolling pin to do our rolling, okay? We've got two cutters today. We've got a large circle and we've got a small circle. Okay, so one's going to be for the outside and one's going to be for the middle. Then we have got a knife, a fork and a spoon. Okay, we'll be using all of those throughout the recipe. All right, now grown-ups, we've got the oven on already. That'll be your job. It's on at 180 degrees at the minute. It's getting nice and hot because today I'm going to show you how to make jammy biscuits. So there's one thing I haven't got out, that's the jam, and we need that later, so we can just leave that in the fridge for now. Okay, so first of all, we are going to measure out our flour. And for this recipe, if we're using scoops, our 1/3 of a cup scoops, we're going to need 2 of those. So let's whoosh them flat. Okay, so we need 2 of those, which is also 100 grams of plain flour. Then we are going to need our icing sugar in there as well. We can put that in at the same time as the flour, and for that we're going to use 4 tablespoons, nice and flat, whooshed like we normally do. 2, 3, seems like a lot, but because it's very powdery, it doesn't weigh as much. So that's 30 grams of icing sugar if you're using scales. Then I'm going to use my fork and give it a mix. Then you can hardly even tell it's in there now. It just all looks powdery, doesn't it? Some of you will be dying to have a little taste and put your hands in. Why not? If you've washed your hands and you're at home doing it, you can do whatever you like, can't you? Now, we'll put that to one side for a minute. We're going to get our butter. And we need to chop this a little bit to make it easier, because we're going to be doing some tickling in a minute. So using my knife, holding my knife carefully and having the curved edge at the bottom, I'm going to chop my butter into little cubes and put them into my flour. Okay, just quickly do that. So I've got here 50 grams of butter, and it's like shortbread recipe. So it's very buttery and delicious. So all of my little cubes go in there. Now we can bring our bowl back on, because now we're going to get tickling. So hands in, remember how we do the tickling, rubbing our fingers together. Every time we go back in, we get some more flour and icing sugar. Oh, and I can almost taste the sweetness from that icing sugar as it's coming up out of the bowl. So we're going to keep on doing this, and remember, this takes a little bit of time, doesn't it? So we've got to keep going until, what does our mixture need to look like? I wonder if any of you can remember. Like crumbs, breadcrumbs, or like a sandy beach. Yeah. So we're going to keep on going. I don't want any lumps. Okay, because if I have lumps, when the biscuits cook and all the butter starts to melt, they'll just look all buttery in one place and not in another. So we need to make sure it's nice and crumbly and the butter's all spread all the way through. All right, we're nearly there. If you're watching this and doing it at the same time, then you might want to pause it while you finish your tickling. Okay, because your little hands, it takes a bit longer, doesn't it? Right, so I have finished my tickling and it looks just nice and loose, and there's not any lumps in there at all. Okay, so now I'm going to need to add my vanilla flavouring, and to do that I'm going to use half a teaspoon, which is my little red scoop. So holding it over my bowl, I'm going to carefully fill it. That's half a teaspoon of vanilla. Pop that lid back on. And we also need some milk. Now the milk is going to make this all stick together, because we need it to be a nice soft ball of dough. And I don't know, I might need one or I might need two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour carefully 1 tablespoon of milk into my scoop and into my mixture. Then before I add any more, I'm going to give that a mix. And like we normally do, we're waiting for it to start to all stick together and all clump up. And actually I can see it already happening. Can you see? It's sticking together a bit already. It's sticking to my fork. There's lumps already. So before I add any more, don't need the fork anymore, I'm going to put my hands in and gently, don't need to squeeze hard for this because it's nice and soft, and I've actually got enough milk already. If you haven't and it feels a bit dry, get a little drop more, but just add a bit at a time, because you can't take it back out once you put it in. Okay, so I'm sticking it all together, and what I'm doing, I'm using the dough and I'm rubbing it round the bowl, round the bottom, to get all of those bits, because I don't know about you, but in our house these go very fast. I don't want to lose any, because that means less biscuits. Right, now then, now it's all stuck together and it's quite soft, so I am going to need a little bit of flour on my mat, otherwise it's going to stick like mad. And I think I'm also going to need a bit on my rolling pin and on my hands. Okay, so now I'm going to get my dough and I'm just going to gently squash it together. You don't need to press hard, and then let's start rolling. So remember, hands in the middle. Let's gently roll all the way over and all the way back. All the way over, all the way back. Just going to turn my dough over and then I'm going to roll the other way as well. Now this doesn't need to be paper thin. I'm going to make it about the thickness of a nice shiny pound coin. And then I know it's not going to be too thin and crispy. It's going to be just right. So nice and flat, nice and even when we do our rolling. Okay, we might need to roll a bit more, but we'll cut some shapes first. So with my big cutter, I'm going to cut out the first circle, press down nice and hard. You could use any shapes for this actually. I've chosen circles because I've got lots of different circle sizes, but you could do any shapes, squares, triangles, even if you had animal cutters, you do whatever you want to. But I've chosen circles. So I'm going to cut my circle out, then I'm going to cut a second one out, and in the middle of the second, I'm going to make a hole with my small cutter. Okay, so now I have got a circle, which I'm going to put on my tray. I've got what looks like a ring, because I've cut a circle out, little circle out of the middle. And then that little extra piece that I've cut out. You might as well cook those as well. Okay. I'm going to do the same again. Every time I cut one out, I need to cut 2 circles. So I'm going to cut 1, 2. So the first one's going to stay as it is on the tray, and the second one with my small cutter, I'm going to cut a circle out of the middle. And I'm going to do that every time. I'll put that one on the tray and the piece I've cut out the middle, because that'll be to help me test if these are yummy when they're cooked. Now let's gather up the dough again. Now it's quite warm in here because I've had the oven heating up, so the dough is very soft. I'm going to need an extra little sprinkle of flour. Not too much, don't want to dry it out, but just enough that my rolling pin isn't going to stick. Now I think I've got enough for 2 more circles if I roll it out carefully. So that'll make 1 more jammy biscuit, because I've got the bottom of the biscuit here, my circle. I've got my second one, which will, at the end, will be the top of the biscuit, and I need to cut the middle out. So there we go. So on my tray, I have now got, without me tipping them on the floor, can I show you? 3 circles, 3 rings and 3 middles. And this last bit, I'm just going to make it into some kind of a shape. Let's see, now, I don't know, I'm going to make this into a little heart shape, because I'm just feeling in the mood for making a nice shape out of this biscuit. And it's Mother's Day coming up, so even grown-ups give things to their mummies at Mother's Day. So I am going to make this heart-shaped biscuit for my mum. That'll be nice, she'll like that. So we'll pop that on the tray as well, if I can fit it on. Right, there we go. A little bit of space between them in case they spread a little bit. Now, they are going to go in the oven and cook for 8 to 10 minutes. Keep an eye on them. Make sure they're nice and lightly golden, not too dark. And then we'll come back to add the jam afterwards. Okay? Okay, so these biscuits have been in the oven then for about 10 to 12 minutes it actually took, and you might be able to see there a little bit of golden round the edge, and they're nice and firm. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the circle biscuits, and I'm using raspberry jam. You can use whatever flavour you like. going to get a teaspoon of raspberry jam on the biscuit, and then using the back of my spoon, I'm going to gently spread it all over the biscuit. It's like making a jam sandwich, but with biscuits. Or wait till you taste them. So spread it all over. You can put as much on as you like. Made mine nice and jammy. Then I'm going to take one of the rings. I'm going to put it on top. And there you have your jammy biscuits. So you can do that to all of your biscuits, and then obviously have a taste. Now I'm not going to taste one right now because I'm going to keep these for later. If my little one comes home and he knows I've been baking and there's none for him, oh, there'll be trouble. So I'm going to save these till later. If you have a go at home, can you send me some photos? I'd love to see them, and tell me whether you think it's thumbs up, in the middle, or thumbs down. Happy cooking, everyone. Bye for now.